You're good.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Shante. I'm so excited. So this is my first time doing this. So basically, I love to talk, right? And I love to ask people really intense questions about themselves and their journey. And so I figured, why not share this information with, the collective, and we can all learn and get to know you better and what you do. And also we can all, just learn more about spirituality and about the path and how there's different perspectives and every spiritual. And the thing is it can be intimidating sometimes. Like, for example, because you have like so many followers, and for me as a new person to TikTok, it can be intimidating, like looking at these other practitioners, like, oh wow, how did they get there? How did they get to where they are now? So yeah, I'm super excited. Anything you want to say, introduction for yourself?
Introduction for myself, sure. I'm gonna get all settled and cuddled, all curled up, all ADHD style here. Hi, I'm Shante Morgan-Anderson. I'm the founder of gotlostgetfound, the little Get Found fam over here. And the work that I do, I'm a galactic psychic. That's like the way I experience the world. And the work that I do is I hold a trauma-informed space teaching people how to build a safe and empowered relationship with their intuition. Many of the people in my space come from and have experienced heavy trauma backgrounds. A lot of the people that I work with were born activated. I was born activated, meaning like as a kid, I was seeing things. Some of my first memories are seeing my mom's energy frequency. I saw my first monster when I was 4 years old, which was my dad's uncle who had abused him as a kid. And they kept me awake for 24 hours and had my brain scanned. And then I wasn't perceiving what I experienced with everything until much later. And because I had shut things off, I experienced really heavy addiction. Because I shut things off, I went through about a decade of time in my life where my intuition was trying to kill me. I was intentionally trying to just like focus on some sort of ending. And so through my whole journey has been this place of like building a place where I feel safe and empowered just in being a human being and in how I experience the world. And then I also teach new energetic practitioners, again, in a trauma-informed space. I do a lot of inner child work. I can see people's inner children, and I have 5 versions of me that live in my head. And I really care about the line between like physiology and psychology and metaphysics. And this idea that I 100% know to be true, that if we aren't healing in a full spectrum way, then it's not sustainable and it's not long term. And I also, really know that like doing inner child healing, I'm very hard set on don't tell your inner children their work. I don't like that term, inner child work. They don't need to hear that they're more work. Is also like, how do we get out of that mindset of constantly having to be healing, and instead like, how do we enjoy being here? So many people who I work with identify as starseeds, and like, I just don't want to be here. Like, nobody's going to fix that for you.
Right.
Like, how do you get to a place where you like are obsessed with your life and you want to be here because it is going to be hard and uncomfortable, but like we picked it, so what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Yeah, I'm a space holder for a 5 Nations Indigenous medicine woman. And so what else I wanted to start with today is if we could just take all of us a collective moment of silence. It's May 5th, which is MMIW Day, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Children.
Wow.
Yes. And I am another mom to Indigenous babies. And so it's something that like is really personal to how I live. And something we don't hear about. We don't hear about it when treaties happened with Indigenous communities, none of which are being honored. But part of that was that they got to self-govern. And if in the self-governing was that there's no support whatsoever when any of these people go away, because ultimately the government doesn't give a shit. That would be their ideal situation, is if all these people went away. And so I did want to start with that, if that works for you.
Yeah, we can take a moment of silence right now.
Yeah. Omokote shinemakatahe no mohoshokote namahakate amoto heya namakateya. Oh.
Woo. Emotions coming up there. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So Okay, so let's just dive into the questions I have for you. I have quite a few questions, and I know we have about an hour to do this interview. So, first question I wanted to ask, which you kind of already touched on, but how you got started on the spiritual path. So, I guess, and then the next question was, have you ever broken away from spirituality and then come back? So, why don't we just like dive a little more into those two questions?
Can I just say that I really like you. I like your energy. I loved your questions. And I'm just really excited and really grateful to be here. Literally for the last 2 days, I've been like, oh, universe, yes, thank you, more please. I'm just so excited to be here.
Yeah, last night I was just like, it was hard to sleep last night because for the first time in a while, I was like excited about the thing in the morning, you know?
Agreed. 100% agreed. I've been bored for a while, and I've been like, that thing where you try and fix it yourself, and it's only in the last few days that I'm like, whatever, tell me what to do. Yeah, so that's why when you reached out, I was like, yes, how soon can we do this?
Totally.
Yeah, how did I get started in spirituality? So what I told you about like having these memories as a little kid, I actually didn't remember any of that until 2018. We'll talk about what happened in 2018. I'm sure it naturally comes up. How I got started. So back, I officially like woke up on September 10th, 2014. Mine was very much like a kick to the face. Wake up. Like I always tell people, like, you will get an ice bucket of water to the face if you're not going to pay attention. And it started for me really in 2013, though. I started like laying the groundwork. And that what happened in 2013 is I was drunk with my fiance at a music festival, and we'd gotten in a fight. And he then, while we were drunk, begged me to not take my birth control for the weekend so that we could have a baby. And I had this moment of like this like moment of clarity where I was like, I don't know about that. And I woke up the next morning and we're at a music festival. So like, the people I grew up around at a music festival, you start drinking a beer at like 7 a.m. while you're making, right? So I wake up, and for the first time, I don't start drinking in the morning. And it was just like this slow motion day of just looking around at my life and being like, I am repeating, if I were to get pregnant right now, my kid would just live out this same life that I grew up in, which I grew up with so much privilege and so much magical, beautiful things and like all of this great stuff. But it was also deeply traumatic. I grew up in an alcoholic household. And so it was this moment of like, oh shit, I got to do something different. And then for me, the universe brought up, and it had been happening for a couple months, but I just like also had gotten off of diet pills because my fiance flushed them. I'd been on diet pills off and on for 6 years. And he had flushed these diet pills. And so I had packed on a bunch of weight. And for me, the problem was always with my body, right? I grew up, I was a dancer growing up. I was a signed model and actor through college. That like, this was never right, no matter what I did. And so I ended up looking for like weight loss that was going to fix the start of my problems, right? And the universe brought me Beachbody. And it was a way out of my job. I was working in corporate marketing and branding, and it was sucking the life out of me. That I was drinking. I was living for the weekend. That just like, can we just get to Friday where I can just be drunk and chewing up pills for the next 3 days, right? And so it brought me Beachbody, and part of Beachbody, and I became a coach because it was like an accountability thing. And there's all this network marketing and all that, like things have changed and the environment's very different than in 2013 when I started. And a big part of it was personal development, which was for the first time me like consuming this new information at the same time. Like, I don't have diet pills. And even my dance coach growing up, like, she didn't give them to us, but there was access to diet pills in her office.
Wow.
And I had to, for the first time, like do it the real way. And then my coach, and it was just changing things for the first time. Like, maybe what if for the first time I did this not because like I hated myself, like what if I actually liked myself?
Yeah.
And kind of this realization, like I was an apathetic, angry alcoholic. Like, and I felt like nothing I was doing in my life mattered. I felt like I didn't matter. I was super disconnected in a way that I couldn't even comprehend until later. And then my coach sent me The Secret for Christmas.
Oh my God.
She sent me The Secret. And I think it wasn't until like it was a couple weeks later that I invited one of my best friends over to watch it, and he's like really science, very intelligent kind of thing, and we sit down to watch it, and we're drinking while watching it, like turn it into this drinking game. And I remember pausing it and calling her, and I'm like, what the hell is this show whispering at me about at the beginning, right when it's like
Yeah. Such a cheesy intro.
What is happening, bro? And just like whatever, like I'll listen. I've always been pretty coachable. I'm like, I'll listen. And then it was probably like, I don't know, randomly, like 2 or 3 weeks later, I had this antique shelf that needed a specific kind of clip to hook in for the shelving unit. And it's an antique, like I can't find these things. And a couple weeks later, that I was just like, okay, universe, like prove it. In my toolbox was a bag with these shelf clips. And I remember like running around my house screaming, like calling my coach, like the only way these things could have shown up is magic. Like,
Damn.
there's no way I've had these shelf clips, right? And so then I was hooked. I am a recovering alcoholic addict. At this point, I'm like, this is my new drug. And so it became this like right out of my life, right? And everything that I wanted. And 3 years from now, I want to be married and I want to have kids and I want to like, and it was the big one was that I wanted to be healthy. And I realized that a big part of why I wanted to get healthy, because yeah, my body, and I knew it would come eventually. I'm an athlete. I've been an athlete my whole life. Like I know this will come, but really taking ownership of the intense, deep mental health in my family history. Like multiple of my family members have been institutionalized, like deep, heavy, dark mental health stuff. And then on the exact day that I had signed up to be a coach the following year on September 10th, 2014, was I woke up. We were 17 days away from getting married. It was this big, huge wedding. My family had rented out an entire resort for 2 days, like this whole thing. But like everything was in contradiction in my life. I was doing that thing where I was just being so grateful, right? Like I'm so grateful, and things weren't working, and I was like, I'll just be more grateful. Like I was going to pick up my invites for our wedding, and everything was going wrong, including I went to go pick up pictures somewhere, and the first printer stopped working. I'm like, it's fine. The second printer, I'm not kidding you, Ray. The second printer lit on fire. There were flames coming out of this thing. They evacuated the building, and the fire department had to come. And I'm just like in a corner being like, I'm just so grateful.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And like I didn't understand the concept, right? Of like what's yours is yours, and like the universe blocking you from where you're not supposed to be at. I just knew the secret. And if you visualize and if you're grateful enough, it happens. Yeah. Because I
call toxic positivity.
Yeah. It's why I'm so hardcore not that, because I'm like, no, I lived this.
Yeah.
Right? And within like the next 3 days, and that was like on the 7th or something, and I woke up on the morning of the 10th, and I had a handprint bruise around my throat that things had gotten scary, physical, violent for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Which was in a lot of ways a repeat. It wasn't, physical violence wasn't often in my house, but it happened. In a lot of ways, it was just a repeat, right? And I got up and I went to a yoga class because I wasn't going to be able to work out at home. And even that thing that I like fought getting to the yoga class, but like the teacher was late, like all the perfect alignments. And this woman gave me a card at the beginning. This is so funny when people are like, did you ever split away? I feel like this is my definition of how I split away, because I was so awake as a kid and then everything was pulled from me. She hands me this card and I say, am I allowed to swear here? Am I allowed to swear here? That's why I'm asking you. Am I allowed to swear here?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I thought you meant in the yoga thing. I'm like,
No, she hands me this card and I say, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? And she's like, just try it. And I'm still so embarrassed about this. She goes, I go, okay.
Like already rejecting it. Like already just like, yeah, stupid.
Yeah, okay. And I go and sit down on the mat, but like if I'm here, I'm gonna be here. Like, okay, so I'm here. Sit down on the mat, and she says, you know, like close your eyes and like coming into body. And I'd already been doing a lot of yoga because I was a dancer, so, but I'd like fitness gym yoga, right? Which isn't yoga; it's yoga inspired movement, asana. And she said, and you know, do your mantra on your card. And my card said, I forgive myself, I am enough, I free myself to love myself. And my chest physically caved in and my eyes started pouring, and there was this primal animalistic screaming inside of my head.
Wow.
And I stayed on my mat, and I had the best yoga class I will probably have for my entire life. And I was like, it was just me and one other girl. And I'm like laughing and crying and just like really in it. And this woman just guided me through it. And we got done, and I was just racking sobs on my side, just snot and tears. And I sat up and said, I have to call off my wedding. And this woman whose name I didn't know was like, what? And I said, she's like, well, when's your wedding? I said, in 17 days. And she was like, can I give you an energy session? Which 2 hours before that, I would have been like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Like, whatever. And
wow,
I left.
like broke you open. You were like this shell, and it just like broke you open.
Yeah.
Wow. You broke yourself open though with that intention.
With the intention, and I think the fact that I'm a Scorpio, Leo. And just like I've always, if I'm gonna be in something, I'm gonna be all in. I'm a recovering addict. And like I think the fact that that day that I feel like I fought to get to that yoga class. And then that after that, like I just kept, instead of like trying to decide what I was doing and then being grateful enough to get what I wanted, that's the day that I went, I give up because I suck at this. That's the day that I went like, I don't trust instincts and decisions that I'm making because they've got me here. And clearly I have no idea what the hell I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so she took me, we walked a couple blocks away. It's actually just, we're in my office right now, and it's just across the street from where my office is right now, that she walked me and gave me an energy session. And I didn't even know this woman's name at the time. And I remember just like sitting there with my eyes closing and like physically feeling such intense sensations and just like seeing things and like this like whirlwind of an experience. And then we got done, and I sat on the floor, and she told me everything about me that I didn't think anybody knew. Wow. Right. And she then, at the time, this was the only, this little feather was the only visible tattoo I had. And we left, and she was walking in front of me, and she's just like laughing. And all over the inside of this building are rainbow feathers that were not there when we walked into the building.
Yeah.
And she's just like walking in front of me, like putting them in her shirt, laughing. And I'm just like, and I'm sweaty, like whole thing. And I got to my car, and she blew the feathers into my car and went, don't go home.
Damn.
And that, from that moment on, like truly, like there's been moments where I have to like recenter myself, but like from that moment on, I feel like I let go, and I have to check myself regularly, right? To like, oh yeah, like I'm not in charge, but I let go, and like it was like my compass recentered back onto north.
Wow.
In Native indigenous belief system, it's called your red road. And indigenous belief that red is the only color that spirit sees. And like you have a red road, and it's where you're supposed to be. And I feel like I got like shoved back onto red road. And I called up a wedding. My family tried to turn it into their construction company Christmas party at the end of September. And I like showed up, and I advocated for myself, and I refused to hide things, and I told people the truth, and I wasn't drinking. And I, within the next 6 weeks, was in my first AA meeting. I bought the exact same deck of intention cards and started just drawing cards when it came to making a decision, and just made decisions based on what the card says because I didn't trust myself anymore. Yeah, I figured out that I was afraid to be alone. that like, oh, if you've only ever been with assholes, that was always the story, right? Like they're the problem. Like maybe I'm the common denominator. So I was afraid to be alone. So I got in my car by myself and I drove away and I started hunting down ex-boyfriends to figure out what was with me.
Like to like ask them questions.
Yeah. That I was like, what's my problem? Give it to me straight. Like, what's wrong with me? And Jess was like in my car and I would like take a right or a left based on cards and like this magic wild thing that like you can't possibly plan, right?
And what year was this again?
This was 2014.
So this was like, okay, yeah, 2014,
Yeah. And then somehow just through following intuition stuff and down ex-boyfriends, through him having a dream, I reconnected with this guy I met when I was 16, and then date is a very big word for like this hangout that we did and drink together. But we like hung out for about 5 months when I was 15 and he was 20, or when I was 18 and he was 22. And we'd been like bounced in each other's lives for like 12 hours at a time for the last 10 years. We reconnected, and somehow less than 5 months after I had called off my wedding, we had eloped and gotten married in Harry Potter land. I was living in England 45 minutes from the real Diagon Alley outside of North Yorkshire. And then our first son, Rowan's due date was on September 10th, 2016, and 3 years to the day from signing up that like start on my life and like this is what I want. I was married, I was traveling, I had my first baby, like yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's like and I've just been from that moment, like I'm someone that like I don't feel like I ever had, it wasn't ever an option for me to like step away because I already had it shut down as a kid. And if I ever like stepped away, I truly think it would kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like I don't think I would.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then my senses, not just intuition, but my senses started to come back when I got pregnant with Rowan, my first son. I am writing a book. Thank you. I'm in the middle of writing a book. I'm on chapter 6 or 7.
Awesome.
When I was pregnant with Rowan, I started clairaudience and clairvoyance came back. Clairsentience never shut off for me. That's why I drink so much. But clairvoyance and clairaudience came back. And then I started doing intuitive work professionally in 2016 as well.
Wow. Okay. So 2016 is when you professionally started doing like practice, like your spiritual practice.
Yeah. And I started doing cards.
Okay. So you started with cards?
Mm-hmm. And I didn't even like put myself out professionally. There's I live in Idaho Falls, Idaho. We're a vortex, very similar.
Uh-oh. Your sound went away. I can't hear you anymore. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Okay, yeah. It's just kind of like lagging a little bit, but it's okay. I can hear you.
Okay. Did that fix it?
Yeah, totally.
So
okay, sorry. Did you?
We've got to, damn it. How do we?
Did something happen?
I got in a time loop.
I can hear you and see you.
Okay.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I can hear you now. We got caught in a time loop.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Someone tried to call me and I ignored it. And then we got caught in some weird time loop.
Okay, yeah, we're back now. We're good now.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good now.
Okay.
Just
trying to be human.
Seriously, like, man, the internet is, man, just side note, technology has just been acting crazy lately with all of the uploads and the upgrades and everything. It's like, damn. Okay, so this kind of like leads into the next kind of question that I have, which is like, okay, so other than toxic positivity, what are your like least favorite things about modern spirituality, new age spirituality?
I think there's a lot of cool opportunity right now for I think it's a responsibility and accountability we have right now more so than ever before is like decolonization of modern spirituality. And how like this idea, especially as white people, like I'm a white woman, right? That like just because I take something and I can resonate with it, like not all practices are take what works and leave what doesn't. Not all things are for you. So I'm a space holder for an indigenous medicine woman. And regularly in a way that's totally unintentional but like that she'll like check yourself, white girl.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think the other big problem, I believe a lot in paradox. Like if you can't find a paradox to something, like you're probably off in that like two opposing ideas not only can be true at once, but likely are. And so this really incredible thing, especially with TikTok specifically, that happened with like collective awakening is like that you can be scrolling on your For You page and experience something that's going to like spark and help you remember something. So it's this really beautiful tool. And you scrolling on TikTok through a For You page, not you, like people, right? Scrolling on TikTok for a For You page and seeing something and then just like playing with something isn't the same as like isn't the same as alignment. Your For You page is an AI bot. Yes, things are going to show up for you, but it's not the same as alignment.
Right.
Your FYP is not the same as a spiritual mentor, and it's not the same as doing the work. Just because you're going through something, just because you're getting new information, just because you feel something doesn't equate to the level in which like this actually demands from you. And that part can be frustrating, and the like interesting things happening because it's trending with spiritual consumerism happening more so than it has ever happened before. And like the legitimate dangers of that is really interesting.
So what does it look like to you to actually do the work? Like what's in your opinion?
Well, so much of the work isn't that like doesn't have to be shown, right? Like that's a big, I stepped away. I was told what I knew in 2018, what was going to happen in 2021. I have a YouTube video in August of 2018 telling everybody what was coming, that I was like, I don't want to make this video, y'all. And they were like, make the video. And so since 2018, I've been in the space of spiritual awakening, and specifically with Gen Z. It's why I looked the way that I did with my blue and green hair for so long. And so much of the work isn't presentation, right? The work isn't presented. The work is dirty and grimy and uncomfortable, and it's not aesthetic. It's not aesthetic. And very often you're not going to be able to find it through your social media. Doing the work is getting up in the morning and putting your feet on the ground instead of picking up your phone and then going where you're supposed to go. Doing the work is leaving the relationship that you know you're supposed to leave, not because you did all the fucking research on it and you read the book and let's do the thing, but like, you know, and I think it's cool. At the same time, we've lost what traditionally happened with spiritual awakening, where like you were like just kind of free falling and figuring out how to walk. And now there's like, here's all these people teaching you how to walk. And if you don't have a safe connection with your intuition, you're also not likely going to be able to easily access your discernment.
Right.
And that is also something that is very frustrating. It's just like,
yeah. So I grew up in a very religious environment, so constantly being told to just trust my leaders, right? Just trust what they have to say. And so for me, going off on my own spiritual path when I was 21, it was all about, I don't want a mentor. I don't want anyone to tell me what they think is right or wrong. I'm going to go and seek out this truth myself, right? So like, I think that also ties into like, that's what the work is, not going to someone else and saying, what do you think? It's like, no, what do you think? What do you feel? Right? Like, and that's the hard part, having not looking to someone else, but looking within yourself. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So then what would be, on the flip side, something that you think is really awesome and positive about modern New Age spirituality?
That because it's so trending, so Nancy's the woman who gave me that card.
Okay. Do you still keep in touch with her?
She's my fairy godmother. My spiritual awakening was given to me very much in a traditional way. So way spiritual awakening used to work is that one or two people per generation in a village or in your tribe would naturally, as a child, show these inclinations to these gifts, right? Naturally show that they're a mystic or a seer or whatever. And then the medicine people, the spiritual people within the community, again, one or two per generation, would take this child and like mentor them through that process for them to grow to do this work. Like for me, this isn't work that I do. I live this way 24/7.
Right.
I'm not somebody who can shut off seeing or hearing things. Like that's not my experience. And so Nancy from that day on, like, has been this elder that I've had throughout the whole process, and how an elder, not a mentor in our like capitalist version of like, I do work as a mentor, but an elder is somebody who just holds space. And like, I've gone through all this stuff and I'll call Nancy and she waits until things are happening for me. And then for so long, for years, she just isn't that interesting until I learned how to say, isn't that interesting? But yeah, I've had, part of my path is like, yeah, she's my children's godmother. I had a period of time where I was no contact with my family. Like, so I very much had a traditional, and still have a traditional, like, elder kind of experience with spiritual awakening.
Which is super cool. I mean, that's super cool. I love to hear that. And I love her response. Isn't that interesting? I find myself saying that a lot to people and myself these days. Isn't that interesting? It's not good. It's not bad. It's just interesting.
So in terms of good things, I think because it's trending, so I was going to say, Nancy's been doing this work since the early 80s, right? Like where it was.
Yeah.
And even being awake as long as I have, like I was on social media in 2016 doing card readings and moon things on Facebook Live, and like I was the weird crazy witch.
Oh, things have changed so fast. So fast.
So fast. I live in a I grew up in a very conservative town, and I was gone for 13 years, but came back, and I was, the crazy witch. And that part I think is really beautiful and really cool. And while even the spiritual consumerism is really hard, like those crystal kits at TJ Maxx truly have the potential to wake some people up, and like for them to like get into this, that hopefully eventually we talk about how we ethically get crystals and what that means. But like, if that's where they start, that's where they start,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, okay. We're going to kind of switch the topic a tiny bit, but okay, so I'm just going in order actually, and I know I told you I might not ask you the questions in order, but I'm going to ask you them just kind of as I feel is right, and this feels right. So talking about like spiritual awakening and ascension and new earth. So I want to bring up Dolores Cannon, and I want to bring up her work. I did not hear about her until last summer. And I bought one of her books and read it, and felt like after reading one of her books, I didn't need to read any more. I got it. I got where she's going and how she does things. But I'm curious about your thoughts on hypnosis, like past life regressions. I kind of want to know, I didn't include this, I didn't tell you this beforehand, but I kind of want to know, like, if you think that's valid, because the whole idea of like planting, because the thing is when you're leading someone into hypnosis, you technically are kind of putting the idea in their head and leading them. So it's like, how valid is it? And then also, after that, I want to know about what you think about the whole concept of New Earth and the concept of leaving people behind. Like, is there actually going to be a new Earth where people like the lower vibrational people are just gone, or like, what do you think about that whole thing?
Okay. Which Dolores Cannon book did you read?
The Three Waves of Volunteers. I wanted to learn more about star seeds and the different types of star seeds, and so I figured that I would go with that one. And then I didn't realize there was so much extraterrestrial stuff in there. And actually, reading that book awakened a lot of past life memories in me. Just reading it, like I discovered that I was like a sound, light, vibration. I wasn't even a being. I was just this vibration. And I also, through that book, I posted this song on my TikTok yesterday, but I channeled this song called The Call. And it was basically this like the call of Earth, like calling me to help her, right? So anywho, yeah, super cool. Super interesting book. Really, it was very inspiring.
I'm not familiar. I haven't read that book, but I am educated on like the three ways of volunteers and like that concept, right? Which speaks to me as a lot of truth and makes a lot of sense to me. Dolores Cannon. So this is a general rule of mine: is if I am seeking advanced spiritual or intuitive information, I'm not interested in anything on the internet, and I want a book written pre-1980.
Okay.
Because none of it's that different. Like we've been doing this for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? And so that's a personal, like the book when learning to astral travel, how I learned to stop dissociating was I learned about astral travel from a book written in 1927, which means that's only lived experience.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, because there's no internet. No, yeah.
There's no internet. There's no FYP that like, I can teach you to astral travel. Like, no, sit
what
down.
book is that? I'm curious about what book that is.
People ask me that all the time, and I can never remember it, but I will post about it.
Yeah, because I would love to read it.
So Dolores Cannon, I think Dolores Cannon's very powerful in that something important about her and why I think she got what she got, and what you said is really true, that like when, especially as a practitioner, we are creating a container, whether intentionally or not, we do set expectations on that container. And it's something I always have to check myself on as a practitioner, is I'll go in and like always just getting better at like, how do I go in more neutral? Right? How do I go in? And Dolores Cannon for years wanted starseed information.
Right.
Dolores Cannon's intention was, I want an alien on my table. Right?
Totally. Oh, it's 11:11 right now. Woo, I just like looked at my clock randomly and I'm like, oh, it's 11:11.
12:12, which 12:12 is my thing now. 12:12 is my current program that I'm doing.
I have been seeing 12:12 a lot lately too.
Yeah. 12:12 is my current program. So I personally really love Dolores Cannon's information. I think that I do a lot of starseed work, which wasn't a choice. I brought a starseed baby who's never been human before in, and that's what happened to me in 2018. I witnessed my best friend reading Keepers of the Garden that I started reading. And for me, it was validation. Reading it was like, oh, you too.
Yeah.
And this is from 1981. You too, right? This is from before I'm born. But I witnessed my best friend read Dolores Cannon, and because of it, leave the LDS church.
Wow.
Like, so I think Dolores Cannon is very powerful. Same way anybody else, she comes through the lens of like a human, right? And so it's one of those things that like you feel into what does and doesn't work for you. I've read part of Keepers of the Garden, and I refer clients to her, but I actually haven't done a lot of her work because I don't feel like I need to. Yeah.
So then what about the New Earth concept as far as like new earth, new frequency, 5D, all of that, like, do you think there's actually going to be like a separation, like where the higher vibrational beings are just going to kind of disappear, or do you think it's going to be more practical, like
I think it'll be more practical. So I've been functioning in 5D since 2018, and I'm part of a group of people, not by choice. I just like end up at these places, and I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? The whole time I'm like, what am I doing here? Part of a group of people in July of 2018 that we were a radio tower for 5D, like hooking the frequency into the earth. And what I believe, and I always think about my grandma whenever this conversation comes up, is like my understanding of how this split is happening is there are going to be those of us who are capable of like playing in the flow of this awakening, who are capable and willing of creating in more consciousness, and like fear is really about individuality, right? And like the 5D takes away right, wrong, good, bad, light, dark, and it's light and shadow. Like it's dualistic and it's paradoxical. It's yes and for me, the new earth thing is like right now, even with the Roe v. Wade thing, like I had my process, right? And I had my feelings through it, but like I'm not scared. Why? Because that's not where I live.
right?
I don't live there. And so much even of like my understanding, right, is that a lot of our like structures are going to look very similar. A lot of the container in which things are held is going to look very similar. It's just who is in that inside that container, what is the underlying intention behind it, and how do we consciously engage with all of us together. And like my grandma, for example, is still very heavy in religion, and like my grandma will die afraid,
Which is so
like
unnecessary.
will die afraid,
Which is so unnecessary. It's not even.
And that to me is the difference. And there will be a group of people as the world is changing, because they're incapable of feeling their own disconnect and their own pain in terms of addressing xenophobia, homophobia, racism, all of that, that as equality comes and as we all come together, that will be a attack on their being that I don't think they'll recover from. And I think that that's the split, is that those of us who are going to live in this space of connection and harmony, and those of us that will wake up every day afraid.
So what about the whole concept of polarization and how things that are complete opposites cannot exist in the same space? Like at some point, like my whole thought is like, what about like 1,000 years from now? You know, what's going to happen when there's the beings who literally just continue to live in fear and they sink lower and lower into fear, and then the beings that raise higher and higher? I mean, I could picture. So you know how in like other planets or in other star systems, there's like this 5D or even higher vibrational reality where they can almost be invisible from the 3D world, and they can just fly around and teleport and do all these things. That's kind of what I see, but like way down the line, like way far, like hundreds of years. I don't know. What do you think that that's a possibility?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like right now, we're existing in a current, present, physical, multidimensional reality. We're here while you're there and I'm here. And I'm also over on Instagram right now that a bunch of people are engaging over there. I have an avatar that exists on Facebook that I only have so I can buy people's random shit, right? But like, we're existing in multidimensional reality.
Yeah.
And so, and like, I mean, I can go invisible. I'm able to leave my house and wander through my entire day and not have anybody even look at me, because I'm like, not today. And I'm raising Gen Alpha children.
How many kids do you have?
I have two. I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Okay.
The oldest one has been human longer than all of us. Just like he's a Virgo. Bro is just like incarnate. My second son is a Pleiadian elder who's never been human before.
Wow. How did you discover that they were starseeds?
My first one's not
sorry, like how did you discover their soul kind of like origins or whatnot?
So they are only 18 months apart. So I was nine months postpartum when I got pregnant with fourth. And it immediately made me very, very, very sick. And then we have stuff happened of origin, and we ended up moving to Portland when I was about 5 months pregnant. And then this person I had met in New Orleans, I was in New Orleans when at the end of July, and my flight got delayed on the way home. I got sick at the airport, and I did not get better for the next 10 months.
Wow.
And I've now been to New Orleans twice. New Orleans is I'll say a wild place. My first thought is to say a fucked up place. It's a wild place.
Yeah, there's a lot of dark energy there.
Yeah. And I think it had a lot to do with even being able to in. But this human I met in New Orleans was also lived in Beaverton, where we were at. And she's the one who introduced me to this phrase starseed. And then I had multiple people, like with this baby, we considered terminating the pregnancy and decided not to. Because I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I'm a mutant. All my collagen forms asymmetrically instead of symmetrically. So my whole body's hypermobile. You get pregnant with that. It's not great.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was pregnant with him, and this like starseed phrase was introduced for the first time. And then just these experiences I was having while I was pregnant with him. I stopped being able to walk. I was dislocating fingers on a regular basis. Like it got really, really, really fucked up. And at the same time, I'm like seeing people's Akashic record people just like walking through my backyard. I'm at the store, and I can see the different frequency of all the food. And I was like experiencing hardcore psychic awakening in the process.
This is your first child, the one that you said that's been the second one, the Pleiadian elder. Okay.
And then I was about 3 weeks postpartum, and there was this starseed meetup in Portland, and I'm like, yeah, we'll go. And it was like, it felt pretty right that Fourth is his name, that Fourth needed to be there. And we went to this group, and it was like almost set up like an AA meeting. There's just this circle of people, and this person held the group and then had people go around and share their personal experiences of starseed, right? And like there was a Syrian over here feeling like they were totally alone. Syrians often just their job is to like maintain a frequency, don't kill yourself.
Yeah.
Truly. So there was a Syrian over here, and then there was a walk-in who told their story, who was like, oh my God, I now know what happened to somebody in my life. And like this group. And then while this Syrian was talking, my 3-week-old baby was asleep smiling. And they were hitting the points of like, they hit a lot of points that I was like, oh, like, I think this feels like me too, right?
Yeah.
But like, and then at the end of the meeting, I felt guided to offer this Syrian woman to hold him. And I handed him to her, and she immediately started shaking and crying. That I was like, please hold my baby. I had to like put him on her chest. And she was just crying, and like I can see this like light and this language. And we got done, and in that room at the beginning, she said she didn't even know if she could make it through another day without like dying. And at the end, she took this sign. She said, I understand why I'm here now, and I'm gonna be okay.
Wow. I'm like, whoo, so many chills.
Yeah.
I'm like emotional. Wow.
And it was like, oh, and both me and my husband witness it, right? And
Yeah.
oh, okay. And then 4 weeks from that point, I was 7 weeks postpartum, when my psyche finally broke. My body, I had mastitis twice. I had a uterus infection. I went to the ER, and they put me on tramadol, and it threw me up and out of my body. And I was 7 weeks postpartum when I left, and I did 35 days of inpatient mental health care treatment in 2018. Psychic awakening and spiritual psychosis.
Right.
And I'm really, really big on that. And a lot of it's why I hold trauma informed space. It's why I care about full spectrum healing. And I went into this very traditional facility and very much lived like a contemporary modern version of a witch hunt in so many aspects of like getting dropped into a psych ward with a 70-year-old white guy being my doctor, and like then ending up in a diagnosis facility and advocating for myself to point to the only therapist I would even speak to, and told her my story, and then about like how I had gotten there and family origin stuff. And when she said she believed me, I also then, because I had a mentor, because I had an elder, I was able to advocate for myself in a way that was educated and clear and concise. That like, also, I'm clairvoyant, I'm claircognizant, I'm clairaudient, and I'm clairsentient, and I'm going to read you. And I told her a whole bunch of shit about herself, and she said, I believe you. Now what? And I had a traditional facility support me through psychic awakening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about infiltrating the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that
Wow.
Darcy's story is that he nearly killed me.
So then your other kid, you said he's been a human longer than any of us, but he's not a starseed. So you think, so you're saying he's basically just been reincarnating on Earth over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, his higher self is this old Amazoni yogi who's got 6 teeth and these white dreadlocks, and he's super skinny. He was a spirit guide to Gandhi. And he treats me like Rafiki, and he laughs at me. I haven't worked with him for a while because I told him now that I don't need the other one. He does energy work on people. He was 9 months old the first time I watched him pull something out of somebody's body. This morning, my mom had surgery, and this morning he did energy work on him. And I just talk him through being sure he's breathing a lot, and then he makes sure he cleans himself off when he's done.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been human so many times. And so it's very interesting, the dynamic between him and then this little baby that like bro is everything freaks forth out.
Right, of course. He's like, what is this 3D stuff? I don't know if I like it.
He will cry. At my last Reiki retreat, they came to closing ceremony at my last Reiki retreat. And the night before, Nick said he was crying because in his sleep he went on a spaceship and he doesn't want to be on Earth anymore because he doesn't like this planet.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is so, I can only imagine how beautiful it will be, though, for your children to grow up with you as their mom, rather than with some random ass person who has no knowledge about any of this, you know? What a blessing, and how perfectly, like, I'm sure, of course, you designed it, they designed it, you all agreed to do this together. Wow, how beautiful. How beautiful.
It's so cool to be awake and raising awake children, especially, I mean, presumably, I'm raising 2 white biological males.
Yeah, but the thing is like we need. So I know there's a lot of females being born during this time. Like a lot of the babies, like in my family, all the babies are girls. Both my brothers have 2 girls, like both of them, and I'm the only one that doesn't have any kids. But I think it is so important that we break the narrative of this toxic white male society. So we have to have some male babies to be raised in like a loving, nurturing, like healthy, balanced way to kind of be able to like break through all of that, like the way that it's been, you know, for so long.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's my favorite. So cool.
We don't have too much more time, but
my
so
stuff canceled after this. So if you're good,
oh my god, I am good. Okay, cool. Let's get through more questions. So one of the other, by the way, I just want to like pause and say thank you everyone for being here. Thank you everyone. This has been so fun. I know it's funny because last time I went live with somebody, they couldn't see the comments that I could see. So I'm hoping you can see all the comments. People are like, you know, commenting and like being supportive and engaged, which is super awesome. But yeah, thank you everyone for being here. This is just so fun, and I feel like the intrigue in the chat. So I want to switch a little bit to talk about Reiki. So I personally have really mixed feelings about Reiki, and I want to know your thoughts on the attunements and how they teach you in Reiki that you can only be attuned by another Reiki master. And I want to know what you think about the validity of that. And also, about the idea of like the symbols being kept private. That's a very big thing in Reiki, how, you know, you're not supposed to share the symbols with anyone and you only get to access to certain symbols when you've done certain training and la la la. So what do you think about that? And also tagging onto that, do you think the symbols can be used in a harmful way? Or are they just pure in what they are?
Okay. I love this question. This was actually one of the ones I was excited about. And it was funny that I was like, maybe I'll make some, content. Anyway, we ended up here and it's perfect. So this is one of the ways that we get to have conversations about colonization and spiritual practice. Because Reiki is traditionally a Japanese healing modality. I come through the lineage of William Lee Rand. I think most of us, especially in America in contemporary Reiki being taught, come through the lineage of William Lee Rand. I think William Lee Rand did a lot of really great things. William Lee Rand is a white guy, right? And like, it's one of the, I'm married to a white guy, right? And I don't know William Lee Rand's sexual orientation, but he's at least straight passing, right? So he
Right.
really, the world is designed for you, and it's designed for you in a way where you believe and you've been taught that you get to do whatever the hell you want with whatever you want to, right? I think it's important to remember that Reiki is a Japanese healing modality, and how strict and important Japanese belief systems and society is in terms of lineage and the structure in which things are passed down, and a level of respect for knowledge, for wisdom, and for ancestors and for elders. And so I personally am pretty heavy, and I thought my best friend is my Reiki master. And she's pretty heavy that like attunements are supposed to be done by a master. Even the certain space being held is intended to be done by a master. And whether or not I agree with that doesn't matter, because it's a Japanese healing modality and I'm a white woman doing it. Right. So I definitely agree on the attunements with the master thing. Same thing with the symbols on them being kept private. It's Japanese tradition. And just like I'm also a yogi. Sanskrit, very traditionally, the tenets and the limbs of yoga were only passed down through verbal chanting, and it was because you proved yourself in being able to do the work to be capable of sitting in the room to receive that chanting, to be able to put it to that level, right? And so as we grow and evolve, there are parts of that that strip away. But I think, especially where we're at right now, it's so important to honor the lineage in which these things come from, because that's part of how we decolonize things. And like, I'm a Reiki master. I do Reiki trainings, but I personally have a lot of feelings with Reiki. I use Reiki for myself as a power source. Like, it's what I'm plugged into. I didn't get my attunements until 2020. And I'd been doing energy work since 2018. Ironically, how I was able to remember to move energy is that my inner child, my inner 12-year-old, attended my best friend's Reiki training in Idaho Falls while I was living in Oregon. And I woke up being able to move energy again.
Wow.
So Reiki's been a big part of my story, but I use it as a power source. I don't actually do Reiki. Most of the work I do is cosmic work and energy work, but it's what I plug into.
Right.
And even after the last Reiki training I did, like this fall, I'm not doing a Reiki training. I'm doing a healing retreat where we'll get Reiki level 1, which is Reiki for yourself. And then the rest will be focused individually, because I also am no longer going to be, I don't think I'm going to be doing Reiki attunements, because I think as we're growing and as the planet's upgrading, to me, it feels energetically like a bit of an older system in a way that's not going to fit into a new system in the same way that it has been worked.
Absolutely.
And William Lee Rand, like in his Reiki Master's Manual with the attunements, he closes things out in a Christian way. Like, fuck you, bro.
Yeah.
Just because the system doesn't mean you get to come in and be like, this is how you train Reiki through my Christian lens.
Yeah.
He in the book talks about that like Reiki's better than any other energy work. He doesn't say it blatantly, but he alludes to it many times that like, fuck you.
So do you think somebody could be a master energy healer without being a Reiki master? Okay. I love
I
that.
say Reiki Master because it's any at this point a straight white construction guy knows what Reiki is. But I don't consider myself a master level healer because of Reiki. I'm a master level healer because I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people and spent thousands of hours moving energy, doing energy work.
Right.
Paper didn't make me a master, and that piece of paper doesn't make somebody who does Reiki a master either.
Absolutely. Yep. So that's kind of what I was getting at is the title of being a Reiki master doesn't actually mean much. It's really about that individual person and where they're at with their healing abilities. So
Yeah.
I was kind of kind of leading you. I'm like, I think she's gonna say this, but I don't know. But I appreciate your perspective on honoring Reiki for what it is, which is a Japanese healing modality. But one thing I think is important for us all to remember is that truly at its core, Reiki is channeling life force energy. And that's what not all, that's what master healers do. That's what we do. We channel life force energy and we do it in different ways. And Reiki is just a specific way of doing that, right? But I think it's about following your intuition. And like you said, tuning into what you need to tune into to do what's best for that situation. And sometimes Reiki isn't going to be best for every situation.
Well, and for me, what happened with Reiki, and so her name's Moonshadow, Michelle Moonshadow, the medicine woman that I work with. She's a indigenous medicine woman, right? That's what she does. She also has her Reiki attunements, and the same as me. That like I don't even advertise to people that I do Reiki. I let them know I'm a Reiki master because it makes people feel safe. But like that's the power source I hook into. That when I got my attunements for the first time, I was able to like feel this tangible connection within, for me, Reiki's an entity with
Mm.
this infinite loving entity showed up for me in the same level I was showing up for the world. And I wasn't getting as tired. I was able to do more sessions more sustainably. I was able to have access sustainably throughout my day to the energy that I was pulling and drawing from. Right? That it's what I plug into. And so it's channeling to my body, but it's often not what channels out of my body in terms of work. And when I teach students, that's often what I'm teaching too, is like, how does this work? And what I care about as a practitioner too is like, I don't give a shit what you think your mission is. How do you take care of yourself? How do you show up for yourself? And how do you focus on your own alignment and enjoying your life and your healing, knowing that by default, then that will roll into something else.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reiki is a very interesting. It's interesting because for me, it was kind of almost the opposite. When I started learning about Reiki, I realized it was the same energy I'd already always been tuning into. I was raised very religious, but I kind of, even though I was in a religious environment, I still had my own belief system and I still had my own ways of doing things. And I would put my hands on people in church. You know, I was one of the leaders or whatever, and I'd put my hands on people and I could feel this energy flowing through me. And I would get these words of knowledge, you know, about people, you know, words like clairaudience, clairvoyance. I would see them doing things. I would see pictures. So when I learned about Reiki and I went to, you know, school for it, I took multiple Reiki courses, just like over and over, because I just, you know, was like, well, what can this teacher teach me? Is it different from this person versus this person? And to me, it was like, kind of like you said, like I could tune into that and like anchor that energy, and like I knew it was always with me, but it felt the same as the feeling of like God is always with me, like the spirit is living within me and like it's always there and I just have to tune into it. So it was really confirming for me. It was like, oh, okay, so what they're teaching is already what I'm basically doing, but they're just teaching different ways of manipulating the energy with symbols and movements and things like that.
It's
So
a container for what I've already been
right.
playing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So Okay, so I want to go back to a little bit about like the soul lineage, soul origins, starseed origins, incarnations, but about you specifically. Like how and when did you discover your soul origins, and like how much do you know about your soul origins, and like what did it change anything when you found out? I want to, yeah.
Everything. It changed everything. Suddenly everything in my whole life made sense in a way that it was like, oh, oh, like it was just, like I said, I came in activated and then hard shutdown at 4 years old. Um, yeah. When did I learn? Let me think for a second. How I learned. So I went to the Starseed class with Fourth when he was a baby, and then it was like coming home and being like, yeah, like a lot of these check marks make sense to me, right? That they talked about, but not in the way like there were things that were missing a little bit, right? And then in 2017, I listened to Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell. And like, it just like something in me bloomed, and I listened to it on Audible, and I would have these moments where I'm like listening, cleaning my house, and suddenly I would just like wake up sobbing on my yoga mat, like, how did I get here? And it's because she has these chapters that are channeled poetry. They're meditation, right? And I was listening to it that I'd just like be in the flow and be like, what is happening? And so at some point in 2018, we had gotten home. The whole transition out of treatment was a little rocky and weird things. But we had gotten back to Portland, and I think ordered The Light is the New. Where is it? I've got it right here. Let me grab it.
Okay.
I had ordered this deck. It's called Work Your Light. And I brought it home, and I had it sitting like this with a rock in front of it on my shelf. And I was upstairs. And I'd heard this like big crash and had gone downstairs, and something had fallen over on the shelf, and these cards were laid out in my house that they had fallen off, and they were in spreads. I am not kidding you. Like there were 3 cards right on top of each other. Over here there were 2 cards that had somehow stuck in my mirror and were hanging on the wall, and it was just like, what is happening? I was like walking into the room. And then in here they have Mintaka.
Oh.
And I then drew it. Like, and I was like, kind of like, oh, okay. And again, I'm pretty wary about Googling shit, right? Yeah. And because of Nancy, I learned pretty early that she's like, no, like, stay off your phone or whatever. Like, what's yours is yours. Like, that's not going to help you. That's going to screw you over. Yeah. And so I kept like days and days and days in a row. It was like 6 or 7 days. I got the Mintonka card every single day. And then we had a big, huge bath at the time, and I was relearning how to walk post my pregnancy. And I was laying up in the bath and saw outside of my window, I saw pink skies with gold clouds. And I Googled Mintonka and was reading about it. And it was just like, I could see it. I could feel myself breathing underwater. Like suddenly everything made sense. And then a couple days later, like kind of unintentionally, I astral traveled and went home.
Wow, chills. Woo.
And then there was a lot of, I don't want to be here, like on Earth, that happened for a minute. But then I've got these like cool little baby things, and it made it want to be here. That's a really intense biological experience to have children. 2018. Since then, and right around that same time, I started primarily doing starseed work. We moved back to my hometown in Idaho Falls in September of 2019, and I got a room, and my best friend opened a metaphysical shop, and part of why I helped moved home was to help her do that. And almost everybody I was getting was starseeds, and so it kind of naturally took me that direction. And then it's just come up because I live this way 24/7. Like this is something that ever shuts off for me. Like the potential to experience things in a way where like I know several people who are like, yeah, they like work as a practitioner and then like a lot of their life is normal, more typical. I think it opens up and allows that like it's normal for me to be in the shower and like really experience things. It's normal for me to be at a grocery store and see somebody in what their actual alien body looks like. I took my best friend home to Minnetonka with me the first time in 2019. I was able to astral travel and take her home with me.
Wow.
Yeah, since then I've processed. I know Minnetonka is a water planet in the Orion Belt. We were made uninhabitable. We're getting real weird here. We were made uninhabitable reptilian for a really long time ago. Most Minnetonka's came to Earth as refugees. Atlantis was a Minnetonkan settlement. Lemuria, when Atlantis fell, some beings went to Lemuria. A bunch of other of us went to Andromeda. I processed through my time at Andromeda. When Andromeda was attacked, I was contracted with the Galactic Federation as a commander with the Galactic Federation, and did a lot of like conscious Galactic Federation work in 2020. And then last September, I retired from the Galactic Federation.
Yeah,
and went free agent. So good.
It's funny. I have a very close relationship with the Galactic Federation. My soul just kind of goes where they go and fight battles alongside them and whatnot. So I love that. So Minnetonka. So tell us a little bit about Minnetonka really quick. It's a water planet, and you mentioned the pink sky and the gold clouds. What other kind of people live there?
Humpback whales are Minnetonkan. Blue-nosed dolphins are Minnetonkan. There's a lot of like coral vegetation water stuff that's Minnetonkan. Orca are not Minnetonkan, and I don't know why it's important for me to say that every single time, but like orca are not Minnetonkan. Are you good?
I'm commenting in answer to somebody's questions. Minnetonkan.
Yes, Mintaka.
Yeah.
The water, it's fresh water, and it's denser. Like it's got a denser molecular makeup, and so like if you think about like down deep in the south, like right in the middle of July, that like thick, you just walk out into the air and you're wet. Yeah. It's like all the time without the intense heat and temperature. And so like when I say, you can't hear that because it doesn't have the density to track, right? The frequency to be carried through in the same way that we do there. The Luca, the new Pixar movie,
I love that movie.
Luca, very similar to like a Minnetonkan humanoid type.
Do you speak a little bit of the Minnetonkan language, light language?
A little bit. It's hard because I've never tried it in the South. Like where I live in a desert. And I live in a real dry desert, so it's hard to speak it here. And then it's like genuinely hard on my system because there's not the proper filtration system for it in a steam room. Well, in a steam room.
But it's kind of like the clicking sounds you were just doing, right? Okay,
mm-hmm.
So
a lot of click.
Yeah. Oh my god! So I've been channeling that language recently.
Yeah.
Because like my light language, I'll channel different dialects, like all just depending on whatever needs to come through. And I recently did this whole. I recorded it on my phone. It was this whole like long thing where it was all these like sounds like you're doing like.
Yeah.
Almost like beatboxing kind of sounded like a little bit. And I had never channeled that language before, so it was really cool. I was just like really intrigued, and I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm just going to keep channeling it because it must be important, you know?
Cool.
That is so cool. I didn't know that was Minnetonka.
Yeah, I also, thanks for that, because that's the answer that I've always been like, why don't I speak it? And part of it is because it's hard. Like it hurts here. I plan on going. Georgia's calling me at some point. I lived in Georgia in 2015. But I'd be interested to like try and do it there because the air could carry it, whereas here it's so dry here.
Do you have a lot of, so someone in the comments asked, is there a difference between, they said, astral travel and lucid dreaming? I mean, I think there's a difference. My opinion is there is a difference. Lucid dreaming is more just when you're aware that you're in a dream and you can kind of control things. Astral travel is when you're actually going to another dimension or star system or place. What do you think about, okay, I don't want to get too far off topic, but
I
any thoughts?
Dissociation most times is unintentional astral travel where you bail out of your body. And you can astral travel without consciously know where you're going. Bailing out of your body is astral travel.
Yeah.
How I learned to stop dissociating is I learned about astral travel.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally, yep. Astral travel is definitely, it's not as complicated as people think that it is. Like, it's something that we do unconsciously, like often, until you become aware of what it is and what you're doing. I wanted to, oh, okay. So when it comes to having dreams where you can breathe underwater, do you have those often, or do you have more control over your dream life, or is it still pretty? Is it just pretty much like whatever you need to experience in your dreams, you experience?
As a kid, I breathing underwater and like those things that like later, like my whole life made sense. Like me being 8 years old, finding some cassette tape at a garage sale with ocean sounds, right? To like, and I'm like, well, like I need this to sleep, mom. Like listening to ocean as an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Dream. I do. So I have a what has been diagnosed as a very what's the word I'm looking for? Developed internal family system. So I have a 7-year-old me, a 12-year-old me, a 15-year-old me, and currently an 18 and a 19-year-old that are kind of battling it out, and a 23-year-old me that I function with astrally. That's part of what took me to treatment. I thought I had DID. And specific Mayhem, the 15-year-old, does a lot of like astral work when I'm sleeping. And I used to know all that. And then one of the things Nancy, she waited until it like kicked me on my face, but she was like, you don't have to know any of that, right? Like it all still happens. Like what you need to know is this much, right?
Yep.
And it all still happens. And so then I set the boundary of like, unless it's consciously needed for this current time and the greatest good of me and the greatest good of all, I don't need to know about it. And so lucid dreaming is not really my thing. At one point I tried to like teach myself, and then I was like, why? I do all this other weird shit. Why am I trying to use bandwidth here? Like when people are like, I want to learn to astral travel. That's one of those things that was like an old thing. Like you weren't supposed to stumble on it on an FYP. It can be dangerous.
Yes, absolutely.
They're like, oh, my FYP told me to do it. I'm going to go to this random person. Like, don't do that. And so now my dream space, I don't know. It's kind of a weird place for me that I try not to put a lot of attention or weight onto, because it just feels like if I did, it would become work that I'm not interested in.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, really quick before I forget, I keep thinking about this thing that I wanted to say way back in the conversation and I totally forgot. But I want to wrap this up by noon, so we've got 10 minutes. So earlier we were talking about like the dismantling of the structures and New Earth and how society is changing and all of that. So I'm reading this book called Cunt by Inga Muschio. And it's all about reclaiming the power of femininity. And it's a awesome book. So anyone who, take notes, it's a great book. But one thing she talks about is how, okay, so my whole thought process with the whole Roe versus Wade being overturned or potentially, I don't know, did it officially get overturned? I think it did. I don't know. I don't follow the news, but I got an email about it. Anyway, so things are going to happen to push us more and more to doing our own work with our own intentions. So basically, we're not going to be babied as much by the government or by whoever. We're going to have to start relying on ourselves to do the things that we need to do. And one story that she tells in the very beginning of this book is how she had an abortion, and then she had another abortion years later, and then the third time came around where she needed to get another abortion, which I'm like, damn, that's a lot of abortions. I can't imagine going through that. Oh, but basically at this point in time, she was like, I do not want to go to see a doctor and have them vacuum this thing out of, like, you know, like, I don't want it, too traumatic. She didn't want to do that again. So she saw like a medicine healer person, and basically they gave her an herbal remedy and also told her to set her intentions and to basically call in this abortion through intention. And so she said for 10 days straight, it was her sole focus was doing the herbal remedy, setting her intention on letting the energy push this, you know, these cells out of her body, because it was so early on in the beginning. It was just a little blob of cells.
All just cells.
Yeah, just cells. And there was, yeah. So, and the point is even if, let's just say a soul has already entered into the fetus, the soul can go back and then come back into a different fetus. It's not like you're actually killing anything. So, anyway, so she after 10 days induced her own abortion, of 10 days of focus and intention and drinking these herbs, but it was just herbs. It wasn't any, you know, Western medicine. So I just think that that's a super powerful, and she wrote this book in like the 90s or something. Like, this is old. This is a while ago. So it's a really interesting concept to think, like, we don't need them to do this. We don't need the law to be on our side to do what we need to do. Exactly. So this is a really big, I think this is a big wake-up call for us to take our power back. Like, we don't need you. We can do this, and we can do what we need to do. We don't need you, you know, the government, you, Western medicine, you know, you, the doctors of today. So yeah, we're really realizing our power in like new ways with all of these things that are happening. So it's like, it seems bad and chaotic and destruction and all of that, but there's so much beautiful new life that's growing out of the destruction of these old structures, really.
And death is messy.
Mm-hmm.
We, as America, had our Pluto return on 2/22/22. What do you think's gonna happen? We're just gonna, like, someone's just gonna, like, and then we're gonna have a funeral? No, death is messy, and those in power are clinging to anything. And it's why when the Catholic Church went around colonizing and conquering people, one of the first things they did was burn all of their information and ban them from sharing their traditional histories, because things like that.
Yeah, totally.
Right? That's not new information. And like, I have so often, I tell people, like, to choose to have the pregnancy and then say no can be the contract.
Right. Absolutely.
Can be the contract.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, I unintentionally, I didn't know it, but like, I got pregnant when I was 21 with this. We'd been broken up. It was a really gnarly relationship. He was 14 years older than me. He had 3 kids, like this whole thing. And I remember laying down on my floor and just talking to this baby that, like, not right now. One day I'll be really good at this. Like, we can't do this right now. I'm not going to be good. This isn't going to be good. Like, having this whole conversation, and woke up the next morning to a miscarriage.
Wow. See? That's the intention. You had the conversation, you connected with this situation, and you said, sorry, but we can't do it right now. It's just not in the best interest for either of us. I mean, that's beautiful.
Which, I had this conversation when I got pregnant with fourth, when I said that we almost terminated it, that I spent like 4 or 5 days honestly having a conversation with this soul and being like, and like going back and forth on like whether or not we were going to do this. And ultimately, based on that conversation, I said yes. My husband and I always say now, like, if we knew what we knew then, we wouldn't fucking do it, because it almost killed both of us. But like, whatever your contract is your contract. And A, it's nobody else's business. And B, you can't ever know the contract if you give it to anybody else's business either. At the same time, access all those things. Those things are important. But like you said, here's what's coming. where am I going to find the power in it? And fuck you, I'm sick of being afraid of old straight white guys. I'm
Yep.
not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's also like taking back our power from the pharmaceutical industry too, you know, the whole like birth control and all of that. It's like you can control with your intentions when you get pregnant or not. I remember having intercourse with, so I waited till I was 25 to have sex for the first time. I was really sticking to the whole I want to wait till I'm with my person, you know, thing. And then I got to 25 and I'm like, I'm getting old and I don't want to wait anymore. So, but and I knew I had this. I don't know if it's that I believed I was infertile or what, but I knew in my heart, in my knower, that I was not going to get pregnant. Like even if I had unprotected sex with somebody, I would basically just say in that moment, like, I'm not going to get pregnant. Like I should have been safe, obviously. Worried about like STDs more than anything, but I just remember like, even like if that fear would come up, like, oh no, I don't think we used a condom, shit, like the worry would come and I'd be like, nope, I'm not getting pregnant. It's not the right time. I don't want to have a kid right now. Like, no, this is not happening. I wanted to go back to, okay. So I want to wrap this up, but I want to talk about one more thing. I want to go back to the Reiki Master concept and being an energy healer, energy worker, energy master. So personally, I've come to this idea. Okay, it's about taking our power back from all the, okay, so you know the structures of authority, like, no, you can only have this if somebody else gives it to you, if another person gives it to you. And it's like, no, you can tune directly into source, creator source energy, whatever that feels like for you, unconditional love, God, source, whatever you want to call it. You can tune into that energy and activate yourself. You can activate yourself, but it takes a lot of work. It's about the inner work, the shadow work, the inner child healing, all of that. But it's like, I just want to spread this message for people to know that they don't have to go and pay somebody to anoint them or to activate them. Like, yes, it's helpful. It can be helpful to like be in the presence of somebody who has access to more of their gifts than you do, and then you can therefore be activated in their presence. But ultimately, if you were the only person on the earth, you know, and you had no one that you could go to, you could still activate these abilities within yourself. So I love this idea of like helping encourage people to take their power back from anyone or anything that tells them that they need them. You need this or you need that. You know what I'm saying?
My thought is, and I tell people all the time, if you run it, I'm a hardcore in the teaching that I teach people is I don't let my students use the word healer to describe themselves, and I don't use the word healer to describe myself either. And initially at the beginning of anything I teach my students also is like, I'm here to facilitate, hold space, offer perspectives you may not have maybe some education or more experience that you have, but anything that happens here is your own accountability and responsibility and is yours. So anybody who says they're here to hail you and holds all the power, red fucking flag.
Totally.
My experience, and I love what you said, I think yes and, right? Because my experience in treatment was very much that I got to treatment, I had all these tools and these rocks and like all this shit, and I'd been doing this for 4 years at this point. But I got there and they stripped me of everything. They literally put it all in a locker because I could like bludgeon myself with a rock or like drink essential oils. I was at a rehab. It gets weird.
Rehab,
I
understand.
Yeah. And what it was like, I could drop you naked in the middle of the desert and everything you have, you still have. Right. I think that there's some speed in a physical practice. I think that, you know, it feels better. It's more fun, the tangibility. But I also think, and that's the difference between, like you said, energy. Reiki is a specific healing modality that's got a history to it. Moving energy isn't owned by anybody. Moving energy doesn't come with some sort of thing. At the same time, traditional spiritual awakening, how it happened is you had an elder, you had somebody who, less than they showed you or taught you what to do, they held space to support you in being safe while you did it.
Right.
all you're doing what you're doing, which is why, like I said, I'm moving away from like, I'm going to do this next retreat with a level 1, but I don't know if I'll do another like Reiki level 1 and 2 attunement like I've ever done, because it's great for a power source, but like that's not the kind of work that I do. And what I've witnessed in the people who come into my space, especially as a trauma-informed space holder, is that if I can hold space for them and teach them safe practices and teach them about consent with themselves and teach them about how to create energetic boundaries and healing the empath story, which is what my 1111 experience is about, by default, if I can teach them that and then just hold space to be sure that they can go everywhere they need to go and that they can be safe, like what happens is wild. And things that I teach them to do anyway, right? And so I yes. And how do you trust your intuition on the guidance for who's somebody to hold space for you? Because yes, you can do it all on your own. Also intended to do things together.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes some people's journey is you meet some random person and that experience to hold space, right? And then you meet another random person and another and another, and it's not the same person consistently, but it's just all these different random people that just come into your experience.
Well, I've had Nancy, but Nancy's been like a phone call, or like she'd be like, hey, let's do a session, and then I'd sit down in session with her. But so much of that is I was on my own. I was on
and I love that you don't call yourself or people healers, because so I've had this like thought too with like the concept of being a teacher, being a healer. It's like, I'm not really teaching you anything. I'm sharing information, but you're the one that has to integrate it or choose to understand it, or you're the one that takes that information and goes with it somewhere. Same thing with what you're saying about like, you're not a healer, you're a conduit for healing energy. You're a channel. So that's one reason why I've like really shifted into calling myself a channel, because really more than anything I'm a channel. I receive information, or the healing energy comes through me and I can pass it on. But the healing energy is what's doing the healing. It's the energy of the healing. You know what I mean?
I say that all the time because I'm the person that I'm like, my friends will be like, oh, I want to work with Shante. And they're like, are you sure are you done with whatever you're doing? Because I'm like in your face kind of practitioner. And I'll say that. And I say practitioner because I show up and I practice this every single fucking day.
Yeah.
Right. But like, I say things that people will get pissed, and I'm like, bro, I just work here. Like, I'm just doing, I'm not in charge here.
Yeah. You're just passing on the information.
You can care and talk to somebody above me, but you're going to have to do that on your own time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
This has been such a great conversation. This has been honestly just like, and it's funny because you and I have been wanting to connect and we just haven't been able to. And we've never talked before one-on-one, but this was just perfect. Like, it was honestly perfect. And you're so authentic in your content, and when you show up on camera, it seems that that's really who you are. You know, it doesn't feel like you're putting on any sort of like false anything. And so talking to you like this one-on-one, it feels like I'm talking to the same exact person that I see when you're making content, which is so perfect and beautiful. So thank you so much. And I'm gonna, just for anyone who maybe missed parts of this, I'm gonna download it and then upload it to my YouTube channel, which is linked to my TikTok.
Perfect.
So I don't have any followers on YouTube yet. But hey, you're gonna be my first. You're my first person I'm gonna put on there. So I'm really excited. If you can just let me know your YouTube information so I don't know. I don't even know how it works. Can I tag you in YouTube, or
I can my person who could tell you how to do this, because I have a does this for me. Her name's Aubrey. The people.
Yeah, this was just so great. Thank you so much for your time. Just such a
cool. Can I pass them on and tell them how to find me and where to go, what I got going on? What happened?
Oh, there we go. Okay, you went silent for a second because I got a phone call, but we're good now. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'd love to tell everybody where to find me and what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. Totally. So I'm I'm gotlostgetfound on Instagram. I've also got a website, gotlostgetfound. I have a self-led thing called the 1111 experience, which is designed for inner children, ages about 14. It's online, but it's not a course, it's a game. And it's all about healing the story and educating and understanding your intuitive senses is what I wish I would have known going into treatment. Because in treatment, I really educated on myself on like what my senses were and how those were actually manifesting to be able to differentiate between like what was my intuition and what was a trauma response. Um, and so it's that education. You get a controlled experience with every intuitive sense, and then it's designed as a game to go out and play out in the world for the rest of the week. And it came I did not create the 1111 experience. The 1111 experience was birthed through me, and I just said yes to it and then got to do it through my specific lens. It's very much like I feel like little credit I can take for it. And what I've witnessed with people on the other side of it has been unbelievable. And most people do it more than once versus like a course most people finish. I have people who've done it 5 or 6 times. And one of the baseline things is learning how to set foundational energetic boundaries, which is different than shielding. And that part's been really cool, how like witnessing that changing everybody's life. Christina's here and says 1111's been life changing. And even in my retreats, I'm now making it a prerequisite because this last retreat witnessed the difference between 7 people who had done it and the 3 who hadn't. Literally would have to more physical space from the group and like needed more decompressed time in a way that those who did it didn't have to. So that was really cool. I currently am calling in. I only have 2 more spots for 1212, which is an advanced version of the 1111. And it's kind of like we're playing on a whole bunch of different astral levels and integrating. And it's about big collective work. I've spent the last year and a half with this medicine woman I've been working with doing big Akashic record collective work, like multidimensional stuff, Atlantis, Andromeda, like this whole thing. And a lot of it is just like, how do we doing work together as a group and facilitating? Yeah. And then I'm just creating content. And then I also have Got Lost, Get Stoned, which is our metaphysical tool business. We specialize in raw petrified wood, which is a non-negotiable for starseed energy. And there's a whole bunch. It's all over here, my big table of petrified wood. And so we do that as well. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And my husband lost his job in December, less than a week after doing his Reiki level 1 and 2. And 2 days after he said yes to doing all the food for my Reiki retreat. And so we jumped in since then to do this full time as a family, and currently Got Lost is the thing that's taking care of my family full time. And just home doing witchcraft and playing with rocks and doing laundry, and I'm getting to do magic, and my life is so much greater and better and bigger than I could have ever possibly comprehended. And I feel like I'm reminded of that every single day. And I'm just so grateful to get to be here right now. And that's the big thing I care about sharing with people is like, you picked to be here, and it's 111 where I'm at. You picked to be here and you beat a spot over somebody else to be here. And it's your own responsibility to figure out how to fucking love being here. So when all this bullshit happens, you're able to come back to center and be like, yeah, I'm not playing that game. Of course I'm hopeful. Of course things are working out, because that's the only place I live.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's different than toxic positivity. It is. It's a subtle difference, but it is different.
Yeah. Oh, and it hurts. And it hurts and it's gross. And the things that you want, like you want them, you're definitely not going to get. And whatever you write out, even like, I know I want a home and I know that I want space to breathe, but I'm like, whatever. I'm moving out of my house right now. Like, I'm just packing stuff in boxes and moving out. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. And I live in one of the top 3 first houses in the country. I don't know.
You're like preparing for what you want without having any evidence of it being there, which is like, that's how we create. That's so beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Shante. Honestly, thank you for your time. So honored, so grateful. Maybe we can do this again sometime, like a few months down the road when things have changed, and we'll do this again.
And I'd love to do it on MySpace with you too. I'd love to get to ask you conversations and get to hear your more of your side on all this too. Cause yeah, this was really beautiful.
Yeah, totally. Hit me
yes.
up.
Thank
I'll
you.
be here.
Beautiful.
All right.
I'll pray to close out space. Are you cool can I pray to close us out?
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Beautiful. Divine knowing of all that is. Thank you for everything before now and everything after now that is all aligned for us to end up right now here at this exact moment. I know I had a lot of shit change and happen this morning for this moment today. And just asking for gratitude. This is something I've been learning with my medicine woman. Stop asking for shit and just shut up and say thank you. So thank you for continued guidance, protection, and support. And I know I don't have to ask because I know it's already mine. Thank you. Taking shifts, awareness, whatever we all had today, updating them to this timeline, dimension, realm, reality, and all others, including the space between and nothing. Maybe access to all of those who, may grab it and take hold of it. And just deep gratitude and reverence for the fact that we get to be here right now. The fact that just us choosing to breathe and move and feel matters so much greater than our closing a space in love, compassion, and the highest good of all, a deep, deep moment of reverence for the women and children of the indigenous communities of the world, especially in America and Canada and the North American continent. Deep reverence for you, and may peace, finding, and home find you all. Causing a space in love, compassion, and the highest good of all. Homoshokote nama hakate no mohoshotoko. In Sanskrit, loka samasta sukhino bhavantu means may all beings be happy, safe, and free. And so it is. May it be so, as above, so below. Amen. Aho.
Beautiful. Mwah, 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 mwah. I'll see you soon. We'll be in touch.
Bye, Ray.
Bye.